Hello, everyone. I am honored to have John Houck with me today. I wanted to discuss the design of the world's courses as our opinion piece. And then John published an article that reminded me that I'm not the best resource, although I do have some thoughts. The following is from John's website, and it rings so true. No name stands out in disc golf course design quite like that of master designer John Houck. No matter how you slice it, there is simply no equal. John has taken the art of science and disc golf course design and continually developed it for several decades. John has solo designed more than 135 courses, has co-designed, reviewed, consulted, or given input on over 150 more, including Maple Hill. But it's the quality of his work that has uplifted the art and science of disc golf course design. He has designed an unprecedented 24 courses used in PDGA World and National Championships, as well as Disc Golf Pro Tour and National Tour events. John's designs have consistently been ranked in the best in the world. He's a member of 2 international halls of fame. We are very honored to have John with us. John, welcome to Disc Golf Daily, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, my friend. It's good to see you, and I'm very happy to be with you today.
So let's get right into it. Rope. In looking at your most recent blog post, you said rope, slope, and hope. And I want to start at rope. 20 plus years ago, when the USDGC introduced so much rope to a premier course, many of us were aghast. Now it's commonplace. In your article, you state rope, cart paths, and other artificial OB deprive the fans of some of the greatest shots they'll ever see. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Absolutely. And let me start by reading a sentence out of my piece too, because I always want to start with a disclaimer. This is not about Ivy Hill. I know that's a hot topic for everybody. I've never been there. I don't know what kind of limitations were put on the designer, and that's true for any other course. So we're not looking to point fingers or blame anybody. I just want to give a vision of what I think our best courses can be and should. So, and USDGC is a great place to start. I understand what Harold and Dave were trying to do in the beginning, and it was a noble goal. They wanted to make a disc golf version of the U.S. Open in golf. Tighter fairways, more punishing, all that, and they decided to do it with rope. And I have always kind of defended that decision because it was meant to be a one-off. And now everybody's seeing it, and everybody is doing it. Well, a lot of people are doing it and think that's okay. And we've gotten to the point now where people think that's what disc golf should be. So I want to give a different vision. And the first time that I went to the USDGC, I said, imagine demanding that kind of accuracy from the player. But if you make a small mistake, you've got some trees to deal with, or you've got some elevation to deal with, instead of take a stroke and go throw again from the fairway. It's really important all throughout the game, and especially in design, we want the punishment to fit the crime. If you throw a perfect upshot and you're 10 feet from the basket, that's great. If you're a little off and you're 20 feet away, you got a tougher putt, unless you're a top pro. If your shot isn't quite as good and your putt is 30 feet away, that's a little harder. So the bigger your mistake, the harder your next shot is. But you always have the opportunity to make that putt and make up for the mistake that you made. And that's where I think we should be. So if you look at courses in the woods, and they actually did some of this at New London Tech, they took out the rope and they cleared everything out there. So if you make a small mistake, you're not where you want to be. You're not in the fairway with a more open shot, but you've got obstacles to deal with. And I didn't watch a whole lot of coverage, but I saw one where Kristen was well off the fairway. Nate Perkins was doing the call, and he said she's got to hit this tiny gap, and then she's got to hit another gap, and there's pretty much no way she's going to park it. And she throws this big high sidearm with the perfect angle, hits the first gap, hits the second gap, flexes out, and she's under the pin. I saw another shot from that same course where Simon was off the fairway. He did a big stretch out. He had a really awkward stance. He threw this hyzer. I don't know how he's Simon. So he got that much power out of that stance, and he put it up by the basket too. Those are two of the best shots that anybody's going to see anywhere, anytime. And if they had been OB, they never would have had that opportunity. We never would have gotten to see it. And those situations give our best players the opportunity not only to test themselves, to be created and see what kind of skills they have, but they're great for us because we get to watch these amazing shots. So when you have rope, those kind of situations don't have. So that's why I think, and again, for the punishment to fit the crime, somebody who misses the fairway by a foot and takes a stroke, and here's somebody else who misses the fairway by 30 feet and takes a stroke. Those are two levels of mistake that get the same result. And that's not what's best for disc golf.
I have to say, John, that was very convincing because I didn't see the Kristen shot, but I did see the Simon shot, and I think I know the one you're talking about. And after he threw it, I was just like, "Oh, it brought me joy in my heart
Yes.
to watch that shot." And if there had been a rope lining the side of the fairway, and he just played from the fairway, it would have just been a shot, and he just lose the stroke. This way, you gave him an opportunity to make some crazy shot and not lose that stroke, but it's very low probability.
Well, depending on the situation. And so the next step, and we don't need to get too far into this, but I'm at the point where I actually spend as much time off the fairway designing to make sure that if somebody's in there, they're going to have a makeable but tricky way to recover. Yeah. So, I mean, if you just clear out all the rough and let it happen, what's going to happen, that's the first step. But to actually design those off fairway areas so that we can have the kind of opportunities that we're talking about with Simon and Kristen, that's where we want to be. And think about it for all of us as players, right? You're not having a beer with your buddies after the round and say, man, I put my drive right down the middle of the fairway. My second shot was bullseye and I tapped in, right? Good for you. No, what you're talking about is I had my back up against this tree and all I had was a sidearm and I had to hit this little window and I had to hit the right angle and the right disc and I nailed it. And those are the shots that we remember. And we don't want to take those away from the players. We don't want to take those away from the spectators.
I couldn't have said it any better, which is why I didn't say it.
Right. Let me one other quick thing on this if I can. If you look at the PGA Tour, the middle of the pack guy hits the fairway 61% of the time off the tee. That means 40% of the time he misses the fairway, right? So that's an average of almost 10 times per round. He's got to do some form of scrambling. And usually with them, it's the first cut of rough. They have to use a different club. Sometimes it's sand traps. Occasionally they'll be in the tree. But you're rewarded if you're in the fairway, which for them is very hard to do. But if they took OB stroke every time they missed the fairway,
right.
half the game would disappear.
Yep.
So if you make rope to where people are only hitting the fairway 61% of the time, you've replicated that part of the PGA Tour, which is fine. but you lose the other part, which is where the game really happens.
The recovery. Yeah.
Exactly. People deserve second chances in life, Steve.
I am a math major, and I will go ahead and say that 40% of 18 I think is closer to 7 than 10, but your point is still valid.
7.2. Yes, thank you. I have a math degree too. You wouldn't know it.
So now, because of what happened on hole 14 at Ivy Hill, we are all thinking about this. The pin was put up on that big hill. We saw Isaac throw a shot that could have easily rolled away, but instead sat down. I did appreciate that Nate Doss talked about when they wanted to throw up onto that hill, if they weren't going for the basket, they wanted to have their disc match the slope of the hill to minimize the chances of the rollaway. It definitely was still a little bit of a crapshoot, but you minimized your chances. And anyway, Isaac kind of got away with one on that because he threw that disc a little higher than he intended. And then this is the part where everybody got a little sick to their stomach. We saw Niklas hit dead center, spit out, and then roll about 150 feet away. And I'm going to do a little aside here, John. We have some European listeners, and 150 feet for all of our European listeners, that's about a half a football field. So that's how we convert things in America.
It's about 48 meters, I think.
Meters. That's a good way to convert. I was just going to go to a football field because they probably watch American football.
They think football is something you do with your feet.
The name makes sense. We can't get anything right.
Anyway, we love our friends in Europe and we tease them. No problem.
And give them reasons to tease us.
Yes.
The second point in your article discusses dealing with slopes fairly. How would you have dealt with that slope? I don't want to give any more caveats. I'm saying, how would you have dealt with that slope?
Okay. So, especially when you're talking about Niklas, there are two different things going on, and people tend to combine them. So I want to separate them out. And we spent a ton of time on this last year, actually at Maple Hill. Dee started the 3 disc golf conference for course designers 2 years ago in Austin, last year at Maple Hill, coming up this year in New Orleans. We'd love to have people join us. But there were some incidents at Smuggler's Knot last year that brought it to the fore, and a lot of talk about Facebook. Random rollaways, like what happened to Niklas, right? And my God, James Proctor, right? Who was 10 feet away. I mean, put it in the heart. Yeah. But sometimes spits happen. Okay. And by the way, then we wind up in this weird world where it's rolling and rolling and rolling. And now we're hoping it rolls OB so that he can putt from the same lie. I mean, that was Twilight Zone. But somebody gets a bad break and rolls down the hill, whether or not it's OB, they don't deserve that. Somebody else makes, as far as we can tell, the exact same putt, and it drops and it sticks. So same crime, not that it's a crime, but very different punishments. Okay? So the random rollaways are a huge problem and really, I think, easy to solve. All right. I started on some courses a couple of years ago. I think Harmony Bend was the first place. We put something down to stop the rollaways so that somebody's not getting that kind of crazy punishment for something that's really not their fault. Now, how you deal with slopes in general and this one in particular, forget the random rollaways. That's a separate issue. So Nate is right, and I heard Scott Stokely say it too. And I'm working on a lot of properties with slopes. If it's a skill to hit that slope and stick it with your approach shot, that's great. If you use the wrong disc, or you've got the wrong speed, or you've got the wrong angle and you roll away, then that's on you. And I'm not saying if, hole 14, if that was a fair example or not. I'm saying in general, slopes can be a great part of the course. One of the things that golf has that we don't is different parts of the green can result in very different putts. And we have a lot of baskets on flat areas where we don't get that kind of benefit. So to be above it or below it or pin high on the side slope, if you can manage which one of those you want to have, and it's a matter of skill. So, but if it's so steep or it's so hard or the grass is so short or whatever that it's a matter of luck whether your shot sticks to the hill, that's not what we want. We want all good shots to be treated the same way. We want to differentiate between the good shots and the bad shots. I'm not saying the bad shots should roll away 48 meters, aka 150 feet, and certainly not go out of bounds. This really came to be a big issue for me several years ago. I was watching the women at the Las Vegas Open, and they were making great shots. It's a pretty open course, but the most drama came when somebody would hit a basket that was near a slope and it would start to roll, and there's an OB cart path nearby, and we're all holding our breath. Is it going to go in, or is it going to roll out, or is it going to roll out and roll back in? And if that's the most exciting part of the round, the most dramatic part of the round, that's not where we want our sport to
The fairness is the big thing that I think you're going to consistently say. You've said punishment fits the crime multiple times, and I agree with that, and I like that phrase. One thing that I want to ask, just a hypothetical: if hole 14, if that hillside had been, let's say, lush grass, and it was consistent lush grass the whole way, and there weren't rocks and other things that could do funny things, so that if you were playing it safe, you could throw it at the right angle and feel very confident that it was going to sit. And then what that actually does, the way I saw that hole was, if you're going for your putt and you're in circle 2 and you go for it, you're bringing in the possibility of a roll away because you're going for it. Is it okay, as long as we have fairness, is it okay to have that kind of risk reward on the green? Normally we have risk reward on the tee or an approach shot. Is it okay to have that on the green?
Well, okay. Risk reward on the green is a bigger subject, but let's talk about what you're saying is I might feel like I made a good shot and I did everything I could, but I still rolled away. Or you and I make what looks to be identical shots and you stick and I roll. That's what we want to avoid. Okay. And there are people who will say luck is part of the game. It's exciting. Live with it. And that is true. But I feel like our job as designers is to minimize the impact of luck. So, whatever we have to do, I mean, yeah, you don't want to say, I'm gonna risk this knowing that there's a 50% chance I'm going to get unfairly kicked back down the hill. You want to say, I'm going to take this risk knowing that I can make it 50% of the time and it's on me. If I execute, I make it. If I don't execute, I'm going to get penalized. That's the real risk and reward. Not, yes, I'm going to throw it up there and pull the handle and maybe I'm going to get jackpot and maybe I'm not. Okay. That's random. We want it as much as possible to be about skill. We want greater mistakes to get a worse result than small mistakes. And we want identical shots as much as we can to get the same result.
Perfect. Very well said. And I think you're right. I think if you miss your putt and the same thing happens, 99 times out of 100, then we're all good. Um, your third point, I think this isn't going to, there's not going to be much discussion here from what I'm reading. Challenging players with obstacles. So you have something called obstacles per throw. As we've seen more and more golf courses be turned into disc golf courses, sometimes there are very few to no trees in the way. Uh, do you want to talk a little bit about obstacles per throw and how we should think about trees and in our design?
I think I just re-looked again at last year's survey. I think it's Ulti World who does that survey,
Yep.
and people preferred playing on wooded courses. They preferred watching on wooded courses, and the ideal is kind of disc golf challenges on a ball golf course if you're going to be on a ball golf course. And I'm doing one right now in Memphis, which is an amazing property. It's hilly, it's got tons of woods, and there's more topo in the woods than there is on the golf course. So I feel like that's where I want to be. I want to have a Maple Hill challenge, a W.R. Jackson challenge, a Harmony Bend challenge on the golf course. There are going to be advantages to the golf course that these wooded properties don't have, and I want to take advantage of those. But what's happening, and I'll give you three examples. Hole number one at the Preserve, hole number one at the Open at Austin, and hole number one at Ivy Hill. Those are just three that they were in my mind for whatever reason. The odds that anybody's going to hit a tree on any of those holes is very, very tiny. So I give them an OPT score, obstacle per throw score of, maybe 1 out of 10. And in some cases that's being generous. So we're all very familiar right now with Ivy Hill. So let's just use that as an example. Hole number one, you need to land between the big tree, the canopy of the big tree, and the cart path. If you do that, you're set up the way you want to for your next shot. So it's about coming to rest on this little area here. That'll set you up for your second shot. And that is golf. That's what they do. They want their ball to come to rest in this particular area that they have chosen.
Right.
So I think the ideal course, we have to negotiate something in the air to get to that spot. It's not just about and look, because we can do amazing things in the air. They can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. We can do a bunch of this and some of that at the end and everything in between. So let's give our players the opportunity to think, bring strategy into the game, course management, and it gives the spectators something more to see, right? The golf is supposed to reveal character. Let's make them think. Let's get to see their thought process. And so to me, that's the ideal. I understand it's hard on a lot of golf course properties, especially if it's a temporary course. But again, I'm not looking to criticize what's out there or what's been done. I just want to talk about where I think we want to be going.
I love that, and I've had conversations with traditional golfers, and mentioned the draw and the fade, and so they can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's
Yeah, and it's not just the shapes, right? I mean, it's our what we can do with height and skips
right.
and rolls, and take advantage of that. There are holes or shots that don't have trees, but there's enough of other things going on that it becomes interesting. And since I mentioned the Preserve, there's a hole at the Preserve. I think it's number 13, where there are no trees, but there's a gully, maybe with water, and the green is built up a little bit. And a perfect shot goes about 300 feet in sticks. And it's something that pros should be able to do all day in their sleep, but the fear that comes in from these other things. So I did expand the definition. The advanced version is OPT ION, obstacles per throw, including other nuance. So there is a place for that. I'd probably rather see that hole with a couple trees on it, but so be it.
Options are good.
Yes, options are good, and sometimes it's water, sometimes it's slope to make the hole more interesting. But we wanna have trees when we can.
The fourth point you make in your article talks about accommodating spectators and cameras. I think the Pro Tour has done a very good job and has demonstrated we can film disc golf in the woods pretty well as long as we have a good signal. Can you give a couple of examples of how woods golf and on-site spectators go hand in hand in designs that you're doing now? I'm assuming 10 years ago when you were designing spectators were not a big thought. And now I
They were
assume they are a
they were
thought.
not any size thought, right? Right, and now we're trying to have DGPT events on these wooded courses, and how do we shoehorn spectators in there? It's very difficult, but it's not hard to do if we design the course with spectators in mind ahead of time. So, and I want to give Dee a lot of credit for some of this because she has a great vision for how these things work. And a lot of people don't understand that she really understands design deeply, even though she was never a pro player. And she comes with some amazing innovations, including innovations in tee areas, the idea of the micro course, and things on the greens that we're going to be showcasing on some of these new courses. So it's a great time to be in this business, not just because of how it's growing, but we still have so many ways to innovate in design. And being able to accommodate spectators in the woods is one of those challenges. So I'm working on several courses right now where that's the case. But I'll go back to Memphis because the topography is so good there. And you saw a property that we're working on in Connecticut, which is similar. So sometimes we're going to be able to leave the high areas as spectator areas. And so they will be able to sit there and see everything that's going on below them, sometimes see multiple holes from that vantage point. I've been concentrating when I can on spectator areas that have some slope. A lot of people don't realize there are people in the world who are under 5'6". I mean, a lot of them are kids, but some of them are adults. And when those people are in the third row of the gallery, they
Right.
can't see anything. So if we can put spectator areas on a slope, like you would have at an amphitheater or something, that's a big plus. And look, we're in the woods, but we take out the brush. Maybe we take out an extra tree here and there so that people can be in the woods, by the way, in the shade, not baking out in the sun, and they can watch disc golf as well as people can on a golf course. It's not an issue. I know people haven't seen it before. I don't think it takes a whole lot of imagination to know how we can do that. And you mentioned, I think we're past the point where we're living with this myth that you can't shoot disc golf in the woods very well. It doesn't translate to TV. And again, remember, we're shooting courses that were not designed for
Right.
camera. Okay. When we can design camera angles into it, design, places for a platform or even just a naturally elevated area for the camera person, it's a whole different world. So I really think we can have the best of all those worlds. And, we've got several that we're working on now that we're very excited about.
I can't wait to see them, and hopefully they will be filmed so I don't have to travel there. Although I wouldn't mind traveling there. And you say
I've
it
got
doesn't take
VIP seats with your name on it.
you say it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think about how to set up spectators on a wooded course, but it does take some imagination. So I don't want to detract from the idea that you want to put this, like if you're looking at a course and you're designing a course and you have a hill, as a I'm not a good designer, but as a designer, I would think, oh wow, there's a hill I want to throw up there or throw from there, and we have to think also now. Wait, is that a great place to put my spectators, and where are they watching? So you're adding a layer, and
100%.
I think you're underselling yourself to say it doesn't take a lot to think through this. I think there is a complete extra layer to the course design. So I just
Oh yeah, no, and just to be clear, I'm not saying it's easy to do the design. I was just trying to say it's easy to imagine that you could have thousands of people
oh, I
in the
see.
woods watching disc golf. I mean, imagine, if you make a fairway in the woods as you would normally, but now you're going to just widen out the area and maybe it's a little, and people can fit in there and they'll be able to see what's going on. But yeah, I've already had times where I said, man, this would be a great part of the fairway, but it would also be a great spectator area.
Yeah.
And course design is already, do I do it this way or do I do it that way? What is the trade-off? And it's just an extra dimension of the same thing. So I don't ever want to feel like we're shortchanging the players in order to accommodate spectators. And some of these courses will have versions where maybe day to day, when we've got average disc golfers out there, those aren't spectator areas. But when we bring the pro tour in, they need a different challenge. Maybe those areas don't make as much sense for them, and they're perfect for spectators. So it is a not a challenge that I had foreseen earlier in my career, but I love a good challenge. And like I said, we're innovating on every course, and not only me. I want to make sure D gets some of the credit for what she's doing.
So I have one final question with a potential follow up. And when people call John Houck and say, "Hey, I want you to design a course for me," what percentage of them say, "I want you to design a profitable course for me," versus "I want you to design a pro tour course for me"? And maybe as a bonus, are the two as contradictory as my question implies?
I don't think they need to be. I mean, I'm hoping you're profitable at Maple Hill, and you're a pro tour event. So a pro tour venue. So I think that's the ideal. And obviously, being on the pro tour helps draw people to your course. The other 360 days a year. So they go hand in hand. Um, so as to your question, what's the percentage of people who want a destination where they're going to be able to make money? I don't know. I think most people these days would like to have both. There are some people who really aren't interested in being in having a pro tour event, and there are probably places who they want the glory and the visibility and the economic benefit. If it's a community, because some of these will be free courses,
Yeah.
right? I will tell you my biggest surprise of the last few years as we entered into this era where there's spectators and events can be profitable in ways that they never were. I said to D, well, I guess from now on all our clients are going to be private, and it's not true. We have cities, counties, other government entities who are willing to spend seven figures on a disc golf course to make a great disc golf course because they understand the economic impact, not just of all the people who are going to come and play it during the year and stay in hotels and all that, but of having a pro tour event and what that does for their town. So the economic model is completely different. The designing from a spectator aspect is different. Designing for the skill set that players have today And what we expect is coming in the future, it's a whole different world.
John, thank you very much for this conversation. I look forward to seeing some of your wooded courses with Spectators in the woods on the Pro Tour in the coming years. And I'll close by just saying, how many projects are you working on right now? How many disc golf courses are you designing right now?
We've started 6 new ones already this year. We probably have between 4 and 6, that are past halfway done, maybe almost all the way done. So yeah, we're pushing a dozen that we're still involved with at some level. It's a lot. It's a lot to keep straight. And waking up every day and working on a different course is its own kind of challenge. But I'm up for that challenge too. We are very, very blessed right now. We're getting great properties, great clients, and we just want to make courses that people are going to enjoy playing and watching. And if what we do makes people's lives a little bit better, then that's what we're shooting.
Thank you
We know
very much,
that's what
John.
you're doing. Thank you, Steve. It's always good to talk to you.
I will put a link in the show notes to your blog as well as to your homepage where people can find out more about how great you are. And thank you all very much for listening. If you have any thoughts, opinions, or comments, shoot us an email, discgolfdaily@aol.com. Otherwise, have fun, throw them straight, tell a friend about Disc Golf Daily, and hit the thin gap. And we're out. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really does help us grow.